Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Perspective. Today was a day of some political developments, political movement in the sense that we heard what Chairman NAB had to say, we heard what Shahryar Afridi had to say. Also, Shehbaz Sharif spoke to the media yesterday. All of the statements flying back and forth seem to indicate a certain political movement. What do they mean for the immediate future? Let's talk about all of that. Let's also talk about what looms ahead for the opposition. Are they going to, will they be remaining as united as they would like, or there seem to be certain rifts within? Let's talk about all of that today. I have with me Imtiaz Hussain Badaid Saab, who's a political analyst. Thank you for joining us today. Dr. Abid Hussain, who's a senior analyst. Thank you for being with us today. And Nasir Jafri, who's a senior journalist. Thank you for joining us today. Imtiaz Saab, like I said, you heard what Shahryar Afridi Saab said. And you also heard what Chairman NAB said. The government seems to be clear about their stance. They are, pursuant to the earlier statement by the Prime Minister himself that there will not be an NRO, regardless of any intervention of any kind. On the other hand, you've seen the opposition. There seems to be a rift within the opposition. What kind of a future do you think this bodes for in the upcoming days? What do you see?
Thank you very much for inviting. Actually, you see that yesterday even Prime Minister Mr. Imran Khan, he has reiterated that there is no NRO for anyone. However, if they want to pay back and in the form of plea bargain, they can do that, and then they can fly out of Pakistan.
Right.
So the determination and affirmation at the part of government, that is very clear. And the statement of Chairman NAB, that is also indicative that they are adamant to continue the process of accountability in the same pace, and there does not seem any type of relaxation for any quarter and any group. On the other hand, both the major parties, PMLN and PPP, they have rift because they have different point of views actually, and they have different philosophy as well, ideology as well. And you see in past, Pakistan People's Party was westernized party. They were considered from in Western Bloc, and PMLN was treated always right wing party. And even in PMLN, there is again a rift within the party. On one side, Mariam Nawaz, she is taking lead, and she has taken over practically, and she is doing everything as a de facto head of the party. Whereas Shehbaz Sharif, he is de jure head of the party because most of the popular leadership, that is with Mariam Nawaz, and of course Mariam Nawaz because of her father.
Right.
So if we say that PMLN is, if we say what is PMLN, that means Mian Nawaz Sharif and his daughter Mariam Nawaz. So because of these rift, they are not being able to unite themselves. The APC, which was conducted by, arranged by Maulana Fazlur Rahman.
What do you think the recent spate of arrests mean, overall? The opposition is saying one thing, they're saying that, they're being targeted, it is a concentration to target them, to actually victimize them, of course. But the government, on the other hand, you heard what Chairman NAB had to say. What do you think about that?
Chairman NAB, actually he is taking responsibility of that, and there is no doubt that he is independent. Right. The NAB is independent organization.
Right.
And very less interference is possible from government side on NAB. So if we say that most of the cases which were or reference which were investigated or inquired before that, those were started during the last era of PMLN. When Khaqan Abbasi was Prime Minister. So very few new references are being investigated.
Right.
So far I guess that yes.
So you think the reason why most of the opposition is facing this kind of is facing accountability is because of the past, of course, that the references were filed earlier. I'm going to go to Abid Saab. Abid Saab, do you think that's the reason and not what the opposition is saying?
Thank you very much, Maruf. I think what Shahryar Afridi Saab, the Federal Minister Interior, or rather the Saffron, he said that the ANF and the government has sufficient material to be presented before the court when Rana Sanaullah would be appearing before the court, and they have quite sufficient evidences to present before the court. We should wait for those evidences. If we look in this particular matter, Rana Sanaullah's matter, there are so many vices. Opposition has, criticized it in a very massive manner. Shehbaz Sharif, the leader of the opposition in the National Assembly, he came out, he held a press conference yesterday, and he called it, the atrocity against the opposition and unprecedented act of hardship from the government against the opposition. Similarly, today, Shahid Haqqan Abbasi, the former Prime Minister of Pakistan, who talked
And there are
to
other arrests
media.
also with
There are
Benami
so many
property.
vices, Parvez Rashid and Khwaja Asif, a lot of
Right.
people have criticized that. And there are some vices from the impartial analysts, some of the journalists today, some of the very leading journalists of the country have written articles in newspaper and criticized that they did not actually borrow the point of view of the government in their articles.
Right.
I'm referring to some of the journalists.
Right.
But both the, the government or the institutions who arrested Rana Sanaullah, and similarly the opposition and some of the analysts, they are criticizing every, quarter having its point of view. But things would be clear when the evidences, solid, undeniable evidences would be presented before the court.
But it's not, it won't be the first time when a prosecution of this kind cannot stand or does not stand. That's also
There are
true.
so many evidences. If we go back into the history, today which I referred in an article, take the name, Hamid Mir has written in Daily Jang today that Asif Zardari was also accused of such kind of drugs.
But Hamid Saab said this targeted. He used the word targeted. He used that evidence was corroborated against him.
This was his point of view, but again I would say that until and unless we do not see the evidences presented by the prosecutors before the court, we can only judge that case and the true merit when the evidences would come into the court. Before that, apparently there are so many people who are saying there's a political victimization, and if we use the
Rana Sanaullah
general
himself
sense of
has
knowledge,
has
a foreign
portfolio.
minister of a province who was the law minister, who
Right.
is this senior leader of a political party that remained in power for 3 times in the
A
center.
seasoned politician,
A
but
seasoned politician,
everyone
very
would agree.
senior politician would take that heavy amount of banned drug. That's it's a.
What
I
about
think
the fact that the opposition is saying that Rana Saab was himself quoted as saying that he expected an arrest.
This
He
was not the only opposition in saying so. Some of the media, men expressed in their TV channel shows that Rana Sanaullah, while being a participant of those shows, said that it might be the last show I am going to do with you,
So
and
he was
most probably
expecting-
I would be arrested very
And
soon.
expecting an arrest, one wouldn't expect him to carry, anything that.
It looks, very weaker kind of case from the government side, but
But the
again,
government
we
is
will.
adamant that they have a strong case and that they will be able
We
to
should
pursue
see
it.
how and what kind of material that could be undeniable being presented before the court. That would only suggest whether the case is only political victimization or having some substance in it.
Right. Nasir Saab, what do you think? What is your opinion on it? Of course, I mean, of course, Abid Saab is right in the sense that we will have to wait and see how the evidence what evidence comes out in the court and whether it can be upheld or not, whether the government has a strong case or not. But on the face of it, prima facie, what do you think? Considering the statements that have come out both from the opposition and the talk that Shahryar Afridi Saab also held.
Well, I also believe that we should wait until evidence is produced before the court and the matter comes up there, because it's very difficult to say anything at this moment. Certainly people and leaders belonging to PMLN are criticizing and condemning this move, keeping in view the fact that he is a senior leader. He held portfolios of senior minister and law minister in Punjab government, and even there have been articles discussing this arrest. But since government claims that they have substantial evidence and material to prove that
Let's
he
wait
was
for-
carrying, yeah.
Right.
Let us see what evidence they come up with in the court, and only after looking into
But-
that evidence we'll be able to say something.
Nasir Saab, what about the whole narrative of victimization? You know, it seems to be picking up speed as more and more arrests are made, and you know, then the opposition is categorical in saying that, well, what about, why are only the opposition members being picked up? Why not, you know, other government members? Why are cases not being pursued against members of the government? Do you think this narrative will gain ground, considering that there are arrests, and you know that also there are expected arrests, more expected arrests, even the opposition agrees with that, and the government also indicated as far as the NAB is
Well, this is
concerned.
quite unfortunate that we are again heading towards a situation where I think this political polarization will go up, especially if you can see criticism by the opposition and their allegations and accusations that opposition is being victimized. Seems, I mean, their accusations should be seriously looked into, because so far the focus has been on the members belonging to opposition side, with an exception of only one person, Aleem Khan, who was senior minister in Punjab cabinet, Punjab government. And if this situation continues, I am sure.
Do you think that we are unfortunately, I mean, and this is also something that the opposition is talking about, moving towards the 90s style of politics again? And it's an unfortunate back step, because you know, over a course of time, both the major political parties at that time decided that perhaps that was not the right course or the right way to pursue politics, and you know, sort of came to an understanding.
Maruf, that situation that we saw in 90s was somewhat different, in a sense that the polarization was quite high, the tensions ran very high, and it was only because the political process had started with the gap of over 10 or 11 years.
And that's not the case now.
And that is not the case here.
Right,
We were expecting basically that situation would improve with the passage of time, but it looks that situation is
Perhaps you think it's not moving towards
is
that.
not
come
moving
back to you.
towards any improvement. I mean, there is an atmosphere of kind of allegations, then counter allegations, and opposition.
So in that sense, it's kind of similar, you think?
Not similar to 90s. That was very serious.
But it can go there, can it not?
Yes, certainly. If all this trend goes unchecked, certainly we
me go
will
Ji.
be
Let me go
facing
to
the same
Imtiaz
problem.
Saab. I'll come back to you. Imtiaz Saab, but what about the narrative of accountability? On the one hand, we have, you know, this victimization, we have the 90s style of politics, which is, you know, constantly something that the opposition is harping about. But on the other hand, the government is categorical about accountability. NAB chairman also says, we will hold people accountable and we will not compromise on that. The Prime Minister says there will be no NRO. How does the government balance the two? Do you think they are balancing the two and it doesn't matter? Do you think that this is all hyperbole as far as, you know, victimization is concerned?
Yeah, before responding to this question, I would like to say a couple of sentences relevant to Rana Sanaullah Saab. Actually, you see that from inside, if we see that father of Abad Sher Ali, he had been leveling these type of allegations against, you see, Rana Sanaullah Saab. In past, you see, a couple of years back or 3 years back, and similar type of allegations he was leveling at that time. that he is involved in different type of, you see,
Right.
these type of activities. So coming back to your question, actually the situation is this, that if we go to 90s, the opposition was quite different. The present opposition is quite different. That opposition was on one page, and you see they were different type of, you see, you see they had different type of, you see, alliances, and opposition alliances were.
But Imtiaz Sahib, if you continue to victimize both the major, and I'm saying that, you know, that is what the narrative of the opposition is. If you continue to victimize the two major political parties, they will find common ground, will they not eventually?
No, you are right. But you see, it is general, you see, practice everywhere in Pakistan, in other countries as well. Whenever some step is taken against someone, and he level allegations that he is being victimized and being cornered. So this is not new thing. It had been happening in past as well. When you see People's Party government, they took steps against
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Nawaz League, and similar thing happened with you see People's Party when Nawaz Sharif was here. And you see, recall the statements of Shehbaz Sharif
Ji.
when he said that he will take, you see, will do accountability of Mr. Asif Ali Zardari, and he
Right.
will do this type of things, which I can't, I don't want to repeat here.
Right.
So at this moment, actually they have their different, you see, interests. Pakistan People's Party, they are little bit comfortable because they have government in Sindh. So they don't want to lose that provincial government. So one reason, and the other
But if
reason is,
Asif Ali Zardari Sahab continues to be in jail, I mean, the pressure will certainly build up from the PPP also.
actually, no, so one thing we should keep in mind, that at this moment, what is the choice for people? Because if you have to start agitation or movement against the government, there's need of, you see, mobility of people. So people have already tested PMLN thrice, and similarly Pakistan People's Party the same way. And this is the last hope
Let
for
me come back
People's
to you.
Party.
Abid Sahab, you're shaking your head. Do you not agree? I mean, of course, considering we have to keep in mind the economic situation, and
This
of course,
is the most crucial thing which
and
you
the Prime
mentioned in your
Minister
last
keeps on
sentence.
saying, the government keeps on saying also that it is we are trying to hold the people responsible for robbing this country. We're trying to hold the people responsible for where we are at this point. For if you're saying that economically the situation is terrible, then well, you know, these are the people to hold responsible for that. If you're saying that the money, you know, rupee is being devalued every day, then these are the people to hold responsible. So let us do it on the one hand, and that is what they want to do. They want to do the accountability. For that, the only path is accountability, according to the Prime Minister, according to the government, according to the PTI. So what choice do they have?
Economy in the present modern age is something, a psychological ball game.
Right.
Prime Minister Imran Khan has made tremendously tall claims and promises to the people of this country, particularly youth of this country. Those promises unfortunately could not be fulfilled. The economy is on the down path. With every passing day, the dollar was devalued, or
Right.
the price hike is there, about 200% price hike in gas. Bills recently we have witnessed. Similarly, the electricity is going high.
IMF
and
has
the
agreed to give
situation-
$1 billion, I think, $1 billion release.
$6 billion,
$6 billion
$2 billion
$2
per
billion.
annum.
Right,
per annum.
right.
It would be given in 3 years.
Tranche.
Or when the government is not, getting fulfill its promises, or not, getting control of the deteriorating situation, economic situation, the only this, narrative that the previous government was of the corrupt people, Nawaz Sharif was responsible for every, wrong deed in Pakistan. Similarly, Mr. Zardari was responsible. This narrative could not be,
now
sellable
they're both
more in
responsible.
coming, days or coming weeks. The government has to do some sort of visible measures to fulfill the promises it made to the people of Pakistan before coming into power. Second thing is that if the institutions are independent, as you mentioned in your intro, and Imtiaz Sahab also referred that, Chairman NAB, despite the fact that he is, how I would see his press conference today, the same type of stereotype claims he made. And you people know that in very recent past there were some allegations, some of the reports in media, and
But
some
he
of the
also said
allegations
that, you know,
again.
he'll
He
get
is
to it. He'll get to the government also.
No, definitely, he is claiming to do his business or the business of his institution according to the law and according to the mandate given to him. But this is the duty of the NAB or ANF or other institutions which are working independently, by their own laws and constitutionally given duties.
Right.
The government, the duty of the government, Imtiaz Sahab said that the political parties, Pakistan Muslim League and People's Party, having their different narratives. They are comfortable and they are not comfortable, blah, blah. Opposition, all the parties who are not in the government are opposition. And the parties who are in the government, they are government. The government has the responsibility to cool down the polarized atmosphere in the country, to implement, to execute, to get the fruit of its policies. It is the duty of the government.
But what
to
should we do about
cool down
accountability then?
Sorry?
What should we do about accountability then?
The accountability is a phenomenon that could be carried out by the institutions who are meant for accountability.
But NAB is saying
The
that
government
they're
should
doing
not, for instance, today the Minister Shahryar Afridi, who was taking lead, similarly Imran Khan, Prime Minister of Pakistan, used to say this thing, every incident, every place, every function where he speaks, he talks about there is no NRO, I would not give NRO, and the other hand opposition is claiming that we have not asked for any kind of NRO and we are not seeking that. This is political victimization. But the government unfortunately could not fulfill, could not control the deteriorating situation of economy in the country. If government is successful to give some relief
how
to the
should they
people of Pakistan,
how will
then
they-
these opposition parties would be fainted out. They would be out of the scene.
But
If
Abid
this
Sahab, how
situation
do they-
continues, opposition
The
narrative, if
government's
the
point is, how do they stem such a huge gap as far as the money situation is concerned? How do they?
there are
shape-
different divergent views.
Let
If
me-
we
I will
talk
come back
about
to-
the people who are, experts of economy, they are having different views. Some of the loopholes by the present government, the foreign debt is, exceeding with every passing day. Similarly, the price hike is going up and up. People do say in the government or do claim that this was the fake kind of arrangements made by Ishaq Dar. For 5 years, if Ishaq Dar remained in power or being finance minister and the situation remained in the hands of the common people, they were in comfortable situation financially. What has happened abruptly that everything gone into the wrong way?
But the government, I'll come back to you, Jafri Sahab. As far as the government is concerned, they say that, these landmines were left by the previous government and they knew that when the new government came, they would trip on them, and this is the situation that they would be embroiled in. Do you agree with that?
Well,
I mean, of course, there's no magic wand, and the Prime Minister himself also has said on countless occasions that, of course, people have to be patient and wait for things to turn around. And according to him, he spoke yesterday, he said, they have actually started. Pakistan is in the first stage of that, but bear with me, be patient, and let me hold people accountable.
Okay.
The other thing I want to talk about, I want to ask you is that as far as the two narratives are concerned, can the government logically speaking, practically speaking, separate itself from the accountability? Do you think that the government can do that even if the Prime Minister ceases to talk about NRO, ceases to talk about, giving NRO and, not going to give NRO to the people, to anybody as far as the opposition is concerned? Do you think it's possible practically for the government to separate themselves?
I will answer second part of your question first. Accountability, in my view, should be done in such a way that it does not create an impression as if a certain segment of your political entity in Pakistan is being victimized. It should be done in a very transparent manner, and whosoever is found involved in corruption should be brought to justice. It should not confine to only one political party or one segment of the society. Number two, government has set up NAB, which has all constitutional powers to hold accountability.
Ji.
So let the NAB do its job, and Prime Minister and ministers should refrain from overemphasizing the fact that we will hold corrupt people accountable. This should not be done, because it creates an impression as if the entire focus of the government is on accountability, and moreover a certain group of people are being brought in the net. So this is one thing. Another thing about the economy and everything, actually people, expectations of the people got quite high.
Right.
After Prime Minister Imran Khan actually made claims that he would bring economy back on rails. His government will not obtain any loans. The government will actually try and utilize.
But to be
the
fair, a lot of these things are said, for electioneering, for campaigning.
You are right. But
in this
there
case-
are certain things. For instance, the Prime Minister said that a person I don't think is capable to run the government if he approaches different international financial and lending institutions for bailout packages and assistance. So such kind of statements actually
But he changed his mind. I mean, he said fair enough.
you are
I
right,
changed
but
my mind."
actually expectations of the people got very high. They thought that Prime Minister Imran Khan will become Prime Minister and everything will settle down, and economy will be brought back to the rails and things like that. So actually those were kind of expectations. It was and it remains an uphill task to actually bring your economy back on rails.
You think it was a bad move by, not a bad move, but as far as the optics are concerned, according to you, do you think it was perhaps not very prudent of the government or, like the press conference by Shahryar Afridi Saab? Perhaps things like this would...
I would say
As far as the
because this press conference should have been addressed by Interior Minister instead of Shahryar Afridi, because Shahryar Afridi was State Minister for Interior,
Right.
but now he holds portfolio of saffron. So I mean, such kind of actions certainly create problems. It is
or give a wrong, you're saying that they give the kind of impression that perhaps it would be best to avoid for the government.
and moreover people are normally forced to think that it's getting personal, because Shahryar Afridi is Minister of Saffron, he holds that portfolio, so he should not have addressed that press conference. Primarily the press conference
even
should
if the
have been
Interior
held
Minister
either
had-
by an Interior Minister or Chairman NAB or the concerned officials of the ANF.
Okay, let me go to Imtiaz Saab. Imtiaz Saab, even if, for example, it had been by, the Interior Minister, the impression that the government, of course, is behind it, I don't know if it is or not, and this is an assertion of the opposition, would not have been, dissuaded, so to speak.
As per my opinion, there was no need of press conference, and should not create this type of hype, because and should not be given so much importance, because a case has happened and something has been recovered from a
Let
person.
the court speak,
and
let
he
the
has
evidence
been,
speak.
He has been arrested and he is on judicial remand. And yes, whatever they have proof, they have.
But do you think they
evidences.
needed to speak because of all that was being said by the opposition?
Only
as a rebuttal?
representative of ANF
Right.
was sufficient to address the press and give the answer of their questions. So it was sufficient, I guess. So one thing, and second thing is that yes, I agree, because in general discussion as we have done, that the government should move very carefully. and because we have financially we are a very critical
But we're
situation.
talking about one political party. You know, Jafri Saab said that, you know, of course, it should not be confined to one political party. Whether confined to one political party or two political parties or the opposition, this impression is going, and you know, the chairman NAB had an answer to that. Do you think that he was, you know, right on about it?
No, I must say that because actually these two parties were previously in the government,
Yes.
in federation. So when a person is in power, he has to commit some type of mistakes or some type of irregularities.
Has to.
Or some type of.
But Imtiaz Saab, if you are sitting, you know, if you are holding an office, or if you are conducting any sort of you know, work, then if something goes wrong, I will hold you responsible.
Yes.
It's as simple as that. And the opposition and the NAB chairman is saying that. He's saying when the government does something that it needs, and you know, members of the government, we'll get to them. But right now, we are investigating these people because these are the allegations in front of us.
Of course. And the second thing is that Chairman NAB was appointed in consultation with these two parties,
Right.
People's Party and PMLN. He is not appointed by PTI, and he was considered as independent person, and he is a retired judge of Supreme
Right,
Court,
right.
and he remained chairman of many commissions before
Right.
that. He is tested person. So, as far as the references against these two parties, because they were in government, and of course because of their they were in power, and there was possibility of some type of malpractices done by them, and that's why most of the references are against them. PTI, that they are just now they have completed around 11 months, 10 to 11 months in the federation.
What about
and
all this,
after that,
the
but-
Benami, you know, the
But
movement?
I'm sorry to interrupt
Abid Saab.
one point to Imtiaz Saab, that how many people from these political parties who remain in power previously are within PTI, and they are facing the same music which the leadership of the PPP or the PMLN is facing. There are so many people who were so active, very powerful ministers in the previous governments, and
Right.
still they are in the shape of advisor to the government or in ministerial posters or in provinces. They are also part and parcel of the PTI's government, because new faces within PTI, how much they are actually.
Right.
There are majority of the people who remain in General Musharraf's government, who remain in PTI's government, People's Party's government, and PMLN's government. But the people, the question is, if it is not being done, I'm not, you know, accusing anybody that they are doing or not.
We're
but
saying what the opposition is saying.
how many people are being treated in the same manner as you are treating PPP or PMLN for this allegation that they were in government in past?
no, but it's no necessity that everybody, when he is in public office, he will commit some type of corruption.
There
or
are
this or
many
that.
allegations
But you
against so
think
many
that the people
in
who have joined the PTI,
turncoats.
none of them have committed any allegations?
No,
Sorry, any
No, there are some type of, you see,
deviations or
investigations
any-
or inquiries
right.
are being conducted against those people. Like you see that in Peshawar case, that is Malam Jabba case and these type of things. Those are also in the pipeline, and maybe that will also have, you see, further phase and next phase of arrest and these type of things. We can't rule out that. But it all depends upon the priorities of Chairman NAB,
Right.
being head of that institution.
Ji, Abid Saab, before I go to Jafri Saab, in your opinion, do you think the government, of course, they can do one thing, they can stop giving out the press conferences, they can stop making, you know, claims, making assertions about the investigations going on, and that would
And
perhaps
even predictions.
Predictions.
While being sitting on media channels, some of the ministers made predictions that Mr. Such and such would be behind the bars in coming, you know, days. I think it is an, you know, impression being created by those people that all these actions are a political vindictive kind of actions, and the government is behind all these actions. Government should focus on the economy and the problems of the country. Opposition's constitutional role is to oppose the government, but the government, incumbent government's duty is to deliver, is to make policies, to implement, to execute them.
think a part
Only
of it-
giving this rhetoric, unfortunately, putting all the blames on the previous government. Yes, for the sake of discussion, we agree that
But
all
who do they
wrong deeds
blame
were
if-
made by the previous governments.
Right.
What the way forward? If the Nawaz Sharif has done wrong with the economy of this country
Right.
and snatched billion of rupees of this country, if similar kind of action was done by Asif Ali Zardari and the Pakistan People's Party and their governments, do take money from them. Why the people of this country are being suffered? if the government failed to bring a single amount from the the people who have been put behind the bar and the allegations were levied against them. But the people of Pakistan is suffering with every passing day. The prices of utility bills and the other consumable goods are under a very rapid hike.
Right.
And nothing is coming out of, no allegation has so far been proved in the court that these people have embezzled the money of public exchequer. Not a single penny comes from those people who are behind the bar, and people of Pakistan are facing the music
Right,
of that.
Jafri sir?
The government should take action. If those people have done something wrong, take money from them. But the people of Pakistan would be given
But
some
who
relief,
else can? But
some
their
sort
point,
of
Jafri,
revolutionary
right.
measures
Ji,
to bring
Abid Saab, I'm
people
going to go
here.
to Jafri sir. Jafri sir, of course, it's the people of Pakistan who will suffer because of theft, because of corruption, and that is what Prime Minister Imran Khan had been saying before he became Prime Minister and even after. That itself is a fact, unfortunate as it may be. But on the other hand, as far as suffering and bringing them into the tax net is concerned, a lot of price hike is concerned. For him, as he says, is the way forward. That's the only way forward for this country to get on the path of economic prosperity. Unfortunately, isn't that true?
I think the approach to broaden the tax net is correct, but the implementation side is quite weak. For instance, there has been a lot of stress and focus on indirect taxation. Basically, when in any country, any government does indirect taxation, this thing certainly is not good, and it certainly creates an impression as if the government is unable and incapable of generating revenues.
And ultimately, sorry to cut you,
Yeah.
ultimately this, the poor classes or the general classes, they suffer due to this indirect
Yes,
taxation.
what will now happen, that you are mostly resorting to indirect taxation. It will put additional burden on your people, and there should have been direct taxes. Basically, the affluent class and those who have lot of money, who
But the
have
government has moved towards that also. to be
no, I
fair.
mean the
Yes, amnesty scheme is very successful.
yeah, I mean it should have been, and further, I think industrialists should have been encouraged, but unfortunately there has not been any encouragement coming up for industrialists, and that is why the industrial sector is or has not been performing well.
They are on strike.
Jafri,
Tama has
Jafri sir, do you
announced
think
it.
a part of the fact that the opposition, of course, is harping about the fact that they're being victimized is because in themselves there's fragmentation within themselves also, even within the political parties as far as the PMLN is concerned.
This is in politics. This is quite easy to say that there have been differences or there are differences in opposition parties. I mean, differences, having differences is part of democracy. One party is not agreeing to the proposals or the approach of the other party is what you call democracy.
Yes, but within the political party.
No, but fragmentation is something different. I mean, yes, if one party is suggesting for agitation, another is opposing it, so you can say there is a difference of opinion.
Like for example, Maulana Saab and Bilawal Bhutto, there's a disagreement on things there also, clearly, as far as the vision is
So
concerned.
this was, this was the first joint opposition meeting after a long time.
So you think they'll be able to mend the differences
They will
and
keep
work
on
together?
they will keep on holding such meetings to actually bridge the differences, to actually remove whatever misunderstandings or difference of opinion they have, and suddenly after 2 or 3 meetings or 4 meetings they may also be able to find a common ground.
What about the differences within PMLN as far as Mariam Nawaz Sahiba is concerned, as far as Shehbaz
You know,
Sharif Saab is concerned?
we have only been hearing it on our electronic media. Mariam has said nothing on record about what kind of references she has with Shehbaz Sharif, nor did Shehbaz Sharif say anything about
But of
those
course,
differences.
I mean that would be detrimental if they were actually going
You
to own
know,
up to
this
it.
is what I am saying, that this was their first meeting, and they will hold more meetings in future, and they will certainly try to find common grounds
And
on
you
the
think that
issues
the
they
government
differ.
can, so they can amass together against the government? You think that there are chances of that?
Not in near future, because the kind of situation that we are having, especially on our economic front,
Right.
to
Surely that should trigger it.
mobilize and drum up support, public support, will be little different, difficult, because people are themselves facing problems, especially after announcement of this budget and more indirect taxation, and
So that
the
can be a reason.
hike in utility bills, and the continued increase in petrol prices, because petrol has gone up
Do you think the
considerably.
narrative of victimization can, perhaps can make them sympathetic, can make the people sympathetic to the
This is phenomena in Pakistan, unfortunately.
Right.
In Pakistan, it is very common when somebody was put behind the bar by the opponent political party or the government, people having sympathies for them, if we look back into the history of Pakistan. But at present, I think that, referring to your question, that opposition is waiting for the right time, that the people of Pakistan would be in mode, they would be facing the sufferings, the alleged sufferings
Right.
by the budget passed recently by the government. And secondly, perhaps they are also waiting for the
Weather
And
change.
it's
better weather.
normally
Actually,
better
political
weather,
parties
actually.
always
Wait for the
look
right
at the
time.
pulse
As-
of the
As I
people.
foresee, you see that the negative effects of the budget will start by the end of, by this beginning of August, I guess, when people will get utility bills and these type
Yes.
of things.
Right.
That
And
is a
after-
serious
and
concern.
After that, maybe there is some type of consensus between the people and the political parties to start some type of agitation.
And weather would also be pleasant at that.
So I guess
Unfortunately, that's all the time that we have. Thank you so much for joining us today. Imtiaz Hussain Varait Saab, thank you for your time. Dr. Abid Hussain, thank you for joining us today. Nasir Jafri Saab, thank you for being with us today. As far as the accountability is concerned, certainly holding people accountable for corruption has been an important part of this government's agenda, and the public voted them in and agrees with that. Of course, on the other hand, the economic situation, everyone is looking at the economy of the country, everyone is looking at where we are going, whether the path for prosperity is set. According to the Prime Minister, we must wait, and we are just on the first stage of economic prosperity. Let's hope that we can work towards some kind of an economic equilibrium, and that itself will be of relief to the people of Pakistan. Thank you so much for joining us today on